shall we do the minutes?
I'm Mark.
I move the minutes as presented.
Okay, any changes? Okay, so Tim seconds. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? None. All right, so, we got a lot of, Rich Brown just got his in under the wire, he gets full credit.
Whoa.
So, anyway, I thought these were really good, and, somebody just said they really liked Rich Mandy's, I did too.
Which ones were, I didn't have.
Which ones were Rich's? The good one?
Was this,
No.
the little, is this one yours, John, with a short list of options?
On the back, yeah.
Okay, then I got it.
Yeah. So, here's a question before we dive into the particulars. What do you think, or, I don't know how to phrase it, there's one way of phrasing it. What do you think of, the idea that the board, that we all state our preferences, our personal preferences, see if we can get a consensus? So that when, I'm just thinking, when we send this out, we've been working on this for a long time. Maybe we owe it to the public to actually say what we think in addition to just sort of, so, okay, what are your thoughts?
You mean just in this meeting, say, what do we?
No,
whatever?
that we, in the, whatever we send to the town, that the board can state, if there is a consensus, which there may not be, that the board can state, well, the board's consensus is the following, because of what, X, A, B, and C, but here are questions for you to consider regardless of the board's thoughts.
It could go two ways. One, you could have undue influence on people's opinions just by knowing that that's what the authorities think. And two, you could create reactions, negative reactions,
Yeah,
because that's what the board thinks.
Those are both risks,
So,
I agree.
So I think perhaps staying neutral would be just, these are the questions that will help the board decide.
Okay, other thoughts?
I like that without getting into my questions, I posed it as the board's thinking about rules. Here's some of the things that the board might think about. How do you react to them?
Okay, so you agree?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Others?
I guess I'm starting to reflect on whether we're trying to solve a problem, trying to find a solution for a problem that we might not even have. And
Okay, that's
That's different.
That's
Do you
different,
wanna say more
but-
about that? I'd like
yeah,
to hear more about that.
that's different. So I think that's a compelling thought, so let's shift from what we were talking about to what you were.
well, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's a big demand right now for large systems. And so, and there is so much up in the air in terms of, I mean, right now you can buy green power.
Yeah.
Everybody in town could buy green power if they wanted it. I don't think there's a lot of people in town who are, I think the people who have wanted to get solar immediately have probably done that, and there's probably gonna be more people wanting to do it, but I tend to think that it would be interesting to see whether the townspeople really are interested in big solar
Oh,
farms.
it'd definitely be interesting, yeah.
Well, we weren't ready for Scott Bailey. So we really don't know what
Right.
the demand is out there. Cause the conditions are so frosty.
Well, we do know that commercial developers are interested. Kearsarge was interested,
Yeah.
and there were, you were contacted, and Ross McIntyre was contacted, and I'm sure there are other people who we don't know about. So the question isn't whether there's commercial developers who are interested, but whether people in Lyme are interested in what the commercial developers are interested in.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I agree with Rich. I guess the question is whether, if we're gonna buy Rex, which it seems like that's the way everything is, unless you have your own solar power on your house, which you feed right into your house, everything else is Rex, really. So, if we buy Rex, does it matter whether we have solar arrays in Lyme or whether we're buying Rex from somewhere else and put them in places that are even better? I mean, that's the real question.
Well, there's a maximalist view, which is that, and I'm not taking a position on this, but there's a maximalist view, which is that Lyme should do everything. You know, that it should do the Rex, it should do the small solar, and it should invite developers in. So, you know, that's a different point of view.
Right, but the question is whether we are doing the same thing by buying Rex from somewhere else. I mean, it essentially is the same thing. And I think, Rich, you said it the last meeting, but, you know, whether we really need large
See,
solar.
I think that's not the role of the planning board, though, to decide whether you're gonna buy Rex or not. That's,
Well, right, it's up to you.
No, but it's part of the process of, as it certainly has been for me, in understanding how this works,
Yes, but
which in turn affects how I think about it.
Well, in other words, if the energy committee decided that the town should go in the direction of buying Rex from wherever, then there may not be any need to have large solar arrays in Lyme.
the energy committee's not gonna do that.
Well, I mean, I think Tim meant the Energy Aggregation Committee.
Yeah, the aggregation, yeah.
So, anyway, what it sounds like to me is that with the questionnaire, this is a question that needs to be answered. What is the degree of interest that people in Lyme have for going down that road?
So I guess I'm gonna jump in with my questions. So I sort of saw that the planning board has the ability to govern where things happen, how big, what they look like. And that's pretty much it. Whether there's Rex, whether the fairy godmother comes down and blesses us with money or anything like that, we set up rules for where stuff can go, what it looks like and all. And so I sort of broke up my questions into neighborhood size. We can already do rooftop and small backyard
I
arrays.
think we're all set.
Right, we're all done with that. Neighborhood arrays, medium-sized arrays of, let's say, 2 acres, and then large arrays up to, say, 5 or 7 acres, something like that. And then what parameters would you set on each of those sizes? And I think the question that we don't think about enough in the planning board is if the regulations that we established, that it's gotta have 10-foot fence or whatever, if that made it economically infeasible, and in fact a commercial developer said, thank you, that's not feasible, what should the planning board's response to that be? And in each of these questions, I said we should relax. Would the town like us to relax the regulation, forbid the use, or wait and see what the LEAC has to say? Because that's certainly a possibility. I don't know, and my sense of this is what's the town's appetite for these smallish, medium-ish, largish arrays, and just see, and if the town wholeheartedly embraced any 1 or 3 of these, that'd be good. And then I threw one more question in there. What if the developer that was putting in the medium with the large arrays said, it's not economically feasible to limit it to Lyme. Should we relax that constraint? Should we just forbid it, or what? So I think those are the things that the planning board does have the ability to control, and that we're gonna ultimately be asking the residents of Lyme to make a decision on those things. So,
Yeah, but I still think that
Yeah.
until we know or have some pretty good idea where so large arrays could go in line, we really don't know what we're talking about. I mean,
That's
you know
true.
what I mean? It's
Mhm.
like, we can't ask people, because they're gonna say, well, where would they go? And we have no
Okay.
idea.
Well, we do have an idea of what's potentially possible now.
I guess, but then,
Well, do we?
if Eversource doesn't
Well-
allow more than 200
But
kilowatts
that's it,
added,
if they wanna add somebody wants to add more than 200 kilowatts, and they wanna pay for upgrade to the infrastructure, God bless them.
mhm.
yeah, but the upgrade will affect people in Lyme, so we have to think
Well,
about
I mean-
that. I
But
mean,
it's
bigger
on-
poles and
It's
bigger.
it's on the state right of way, route down Route 10, so I mean,
Well, yeah,
But what, I mean, what's the significance of that?
I mean, if they wanna upgrade the poles, the power pole along
Well,
Route 10.
yeah, let's get, I haven't had a chance to,
I know,
obviously.
I'm sorry that I didn't
Yeah,
get it to you
so,
earlier.
but I mean, I get your general drift, and I think, don't hold me to it, but I think in general I agree, which is, I don't know about the specifics of it, but I think we need to get feedback about what people in the town have an appetite for.
Mhm.
And we'll have to, you know, work on the wording. So, yeah,
But I mean, I think we have an incomplete picture, I mean,
Oh, we do.
and I mean, at this point, we've had one, you know, Kearsarge sent out letters to however many people they sent letters out, and one property owner was interested in that happening. And yeah, we've heard from another individual who's some outfit out of Salt Lake or something
Right.
was trolling, but the property owner wasn't interested, to my knowledge. So I mean, it seems like there really isn't anybody wanting to do this, and so and I'm questioning whether we're the board, the group that needs to educate people in terms of what's coming down the pike, because there is a lot that's
so
coming
let me
down.
ask, is part of your thinking, we're not ready, we don't have enough information, or is it just that we shouldn't be?
I don't know, I mean, I think it would be interesting to find out what people are thinking, but I think there's gonna have to be a big educational
Yeah, well, that's
process, and and
sort
I
of was
I
the
think-
idea of this, was
Yeah.
we can't just send out questions with no context.
Mhm.
We have been spending a year on this,
Right.
we have been educating ourselves, I think it's ridiculous not to share what we know and don't know and what we're confused about.
And that's fine, I think if that's gonna be our role, maybe in conjunction with the Energy
Yeah,
Committee or the
LEAC.
Expo,
LEAC is not in this business.
you know.
We're contracting, you know, working on a contract that would be presented to the town to kind of work with CPCNH to buy power through them. It's nothing along these lines at all.
okay, so I'd really like to get something definitive in our thinking, because we keep kicking this down the road. Does the board wanna go ahead with a questionnaire? Let me just stick to the board, I'll get to you, I promise, yeah.
I think yes, except I still think that it's hard to do the questionnaire, ask the right questions until we have some idea of,
But we're not gonna
Where
have, we're
things
not gonna have the idea, I mean, we're not gonna have the answers.
well, I
That-
was gonna
that
ask
you might-
David though, David, how much work, I mean, I hate to dump a huge amount of work on it, how much work would it be for you to do that?
He
You
was
mean
supposed-
the
We asked him to
mapping?
do the map.
Yeah, the mapping,
Yeah.
yeah, we
Maybe
just,
find out, cause you were gonna do 5 acres and what, 25 acres?
yeah, and I just need to finish, putting in the power lines. I have most of, the Eversource stuff in, and I just need to, track down all of, the, co-op, and then we can look at the,
So that'll tell us pretty closely where the possibility would be.
yeah, that's,
What do you think the timing on that?
I can have that for next meeting.
Okay.
I mean, Mark has done some work on that, and there's 40 parcels that
Yeah, but
he's
it's
identified.
No,
There's
but
all
that-
the
that-
overlay districts.
But that's
Yeah,
not,
that
that's
was
not
with-
our work. I
Yeah, and that
understand
was not with the overlay districts and other things.
That's true.
I'm basically stealing your work though, so just so you know, taking to identify.
Steal from the best.
So,
So that,
so the thing I'd really like to do is make a decision, go ahead and get this thing done. Or, you know, it's just taking too
I
long.
mean, you're right.
It's taking way too long.
It's complicated.
Well, it is, but it's our job to,
Right.
you know, basically, at a certain point, we have a certain amount of information. You know, for my part, I don't think anybody else agrees with me, but I think we should state our, where we stand at this point. That's our job, you know, in terms of influence or people reacting against, you know, an authority, you know, there's nothing, the dynamics are human dynamics. But ostensibly, we're here because, you know, we're gonna vote on this. Why are we voting on it? Why should we avoid what we think?
Right.
And that, whether that's in there or not, if we decide to go ahead with something, we need to do it, you know, by the end of June. And move on to the housing, because we're spinning our wheels.
But, yeah.
All right, a very patient person.
33% of the public agrees with Rich Mangy.
But what specifically do you agree with?
It's not a problem, for two reasons. One is the best green energy is accessory energy, accessory uses, which are allowed as a matter of right. The rest of the power, to go beyond accessory power, the best solution is through the
LEAC?
CPCNH.
LEAC through the CPCNH. We buy wholesale energy from the aggregators, from direct energy, as you all are doing right now. We don't need solar arrays in the town of Lyme. The only reason that we go beyond, or the effect of going beyond accessory uses, is to hire developers, commercial developers, to come into the town and take advantage of the opportunity to create green energy here, but it's shipped out of town, it's not staying in town. We get all the green energy that we need through the Community Power Coalition in New Hampshire, plus the accessory uses. I think you all should move on to the housing chapter right now.
It'd be fine with me. I'd be delighted.
You really don't need to amend the zoning ordinance to permit solar
So we
arrays.
didn't put the solar to the town because you guys didn't think that we should leave off dealing with the large solar array piece.
But fi-
Right.
That was the,
Yeah, except we didn't know much back
Well,
then.
in fact, when I go back and look at what our assumptions were and what we told the public, if you look at the thing that Eric wrote up, we told them that what we had written would be a maximum of 1 acre, which turned out we were so ignorant that we weren't even close.
what was the maximum, the 20,000?
That the medium, or what we were calling large
Yeah.
arrays would be no larger than 1 acre. But because we were measuring the panels, we had no idea how large they could be. It only came out later that they could be 2.5 to 3 acres.
But that's, sorry, but that's back when you had a 20,000 square foot limit on the size of the panels, right?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
that was for the small. This was for the large.
It was the 20,000
That
was
was
the limit.
20,000 square foot.
20,000 was the square, was the limit.
But you're right, I mean, we
What we told the town is it could be up to 1 acre.
right,
Whatever that was,
Which-
whatever the you know,
Yeah.
but we told, the
Which is-
20,000
which is-
was not,
That was panels, not.
that was panel size.
Right,
That was the confusion.
right.
We gave them the square footage of panel size, or however, the convoluted thing we came up with. So what we communicated to them in the thing we sent out was it could be up to 1 acre. And it turned out it could be 2.5 to 3 acres. Yeah.
I mean, an acre is 40,000 square feet, Howard,
But because we weren't using area footage, we were using panel footage.
which is 20,000
Yeah, which is,
Right.
right,
on an angle,
Yeah.
so it's gonna take up less of.
yeah.
Well,
20,000
I got the
yeah.
2.5 to 3 acres from you, from Catamount.
right.
So there's
I don't,
there's some sort of disparity.
Well, no, I mean, they're saying, other people have been saying that 1 megawatt is gonna be 5 to 7 acres.
Right.
And 20,000 square feet is over half a megawatt. So that brings us down to 2.5
To
to
2.5
3 acres.
to 3 acres.
Kearsarge was gonna do a megawatt on less than 5 acres, I believe, right?
It was 4.6.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So
half
still-
of that is 2.3,
Right.
right? And we said 1 acre.
right.
I'm pointing out that what we,
Yeah.
because you were bringing up what we had. What we had was inaccurate.
Well, I don't.
It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what you did before, you've all learned a lot more. And from my perspective, the most significant thing that we've learned is that energy aggregation will deliver green energy to the town of Lyme cheaper than it could be produced in the town of Lyme, except perhaps as accessory uses, where we avoid the delivery charge.
So
Do
that,
we know that for a fact?
no, that may or may
Yeah.
not be true. I think the
I would
point
disagree with
is,
yeah,
if we wanna get feedback from the town,
what,
I mean, we have to get feedback from the town. Yeah,
Me?
yeah. Go ahead. You
Meg Sheehan.
moved your hand.
All right, well, if you want some feedback from
I
the
do.
town. I'm on the Conservation Commission. I'm actually an environmental lawyer, and I've been doing a lot of work on solar for the last 7 years. In part representing abutters to solar panel sites where, 50 acres have been clear cut and the town doesn't have enough of a buffer between the two properties, runoff, all sorts of problems that you may have read about with large projects, whether it was the EPA fining companies for clean water, runoff and erosion and whatnot. I'm coming really late to this, I'm just looking at your zoning bylaw now. I've worked with many towns drafting bylaws, putting limits on solar size and, towns 5 acres or whatever. I'd be happy to talk more in detail, I don't want to dominate the meeting, but, some of the things that towns, who have, and who end up with a lot of solar projects, 500 acres spread throughout the town, 19 different projects, questions about decommissioning, the battery storage, safety, et cetera, So I've seen towns form solar bylaw study committees to study the issue. It is a land use question, and should it be regulated differently than any other industrial or commercial use? Some towns do have overlay districts, solar overlay districts, et cetera. Anyway, there are lots and lots of issues, so I can understand why it's taken a long time to try to figure out what's going on, and, there are a lot of solar companies out there that basically are looking everywhere around the country for open parcels of land and making deals with landowners, and it's up to the towns to decide whether they wanna you know, I don't, you can drive through some areas of Maine, swarms and swarms of solar panels lining the roads. And so, you know, is that what you want, or do you wanna keep it to on-site accessory use?
Well, that's, I mean, we're educating ourselves, but
Right,
the other question is, what does the town want? And that's what I'm trying to herd cats
Right.
towards what we send out to the town. I think that the problem with just sending out questions with no context is a major problem, because would you like a 2.5 acre, what does a 2.5 acre thing even mean? What does it do? What's the purpose? I think we need to put everything in context, rather than just ask questions that are extremely abstract. Yeah,
The town voted at town meeting to go 100% green electricity, right? That puts the problem before the planning board.
yes.
How do we do it? We do it in the way that's best for the town of Lyme. Cheapest, without any impact on the town of Lyme. Electric aggregation, no panels.
Okay,
What?
but I just, let's just stop at that point, because that's, I think that's reasonable, but it's an opinion, it's your opinion, but we need to get the town's opinion.
Well, the follow-up question is, what is the benefit of solar panels to the town of Lyme?
And I think there are different answers to that from different people.
Well, what are they?
One would be that the benefit is that we would get this energy. The other would be that we're providing energy for the grid.
But we wouldn't get the energy.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's where we get into this
We
sticky.
wouldn't, we're not getting the energy.
Why wouldn't we?
Well, because it's.
Because, okay, let's not get into the grid business. But one answer would be, well, I've heard, some people say, well, we should max out what Lyme does, regardless of whether it's for Lyme or not. That is an opinion, whether you agree with it or people on the board agree with it. It's definitely an opinion that I've heard voiced.
Well, there's having distributed sources of power increases reliability of the grid.
Yeah, and there's
So having
the
power-
redundancy issue.
So having power distributed sources in town.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to get it.
Well,
Well, no, I think
David is
that that's
asking
a-
for what are the benefits?
Yeah,
think
except
that's a serious benefit.
is it?
Right.
If it's going into the grid,
It's not.
it has nothing to, the redundancy does not assist Lyme. It assists the grid.
I don't know.
But the other piece is that farmers who otherwise are having a hard time making a living can lease a piece of land and have a reliable source of income.
Well, I mean, the point I'm making is that there are a lot of different opinions.
David was asking for what are the benefits,
Yeah,
and I'm trying
and
to come up with.
there's there's one thing, yeah.
There's no difference between farmers and other landowners. So you're saying we should have solar panels to put rental income into property owners' pockets?
Sure.
Why don't we approve a whole list of industrial uses to provide revenue for property owners? It's because we don't want it.
Okay, so yeah, please.
Well, I just as a question, when the town voted to become 100%, and then there's lots of questions about what that means, because it wasn't a unanimous vote, yet
No.
the result is a unanimous, by definition.
Right.
Thing, so it's a little hard to figure that out, but when they actually voted, how much background did they have about what was
Well-
coming down the road, like what we've discovered? They
Exactly.
had none,
None.
right?
None.
So the real question here is, you want another vote with them being more educated, giving them all this background.
Yes.
Okay, and ultimately, we don't know enough to make a good recommendation. We do know enough to give them the background.
Yes.
And strategically, the only way that it helps us is if it's overwhelmingly one way or the other,
That's
which
true.
is unlikely,
Yes.
frankly. It's likely to come down sort of right in the middle in a very confusing set of priorities for different people in the town. But if it does come down one way or the other, that's clear, then that does change our.
It gives us marching orders.
That's right, that does change our
Yes.
burden. So that's the argument to go ahead with it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of non-clarity about what our role would be. Cause our role is really only to facilitate the development of solar projects.
Well, that's.
It's not to direct us towards the aggregate power or to make other kinds of decisions about,
No,
you know,
but
should
tho-
everybody
those are
be
con-
directed?
Those are contextual.
Right, they're contextual.
They're contextual,
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
they're important for people
To understand
understand, to
and to
base
render a
their-
decent vote.
Yes.
Or an educated
an
vote.
educated vote.
Yeah, so I think.
Including saying what we don't know, including the areas we're
Right,
confused about.
so I think, you know, maybe going forward with it, if it's not too much work to actually put it together, going forward with a sort of a redo, would help.
A redo
Basically a redo with a more
of what?
contextual,
A redo of what?
redo of this 100%, okay?
Oh, you mean the
Oh,
vote?
That's right, so it's a redo with better contextual information and asking a better question, not do you wanna be 100%, but is your love of solar so great that that you don't mind, or in fact want to see this happening on the properties in Lyme? And
Yes.
possibly,
I
so.
agree.
So, you know, I think that's the way that.
So it's not-
It's no longer 100% solar, we need to test the temperature of these, of the town
Yes.
for potentially facilitating these solar
So the
arrays.
100% is what got us moving.
Right,
So we're not gonna go back to the town for a vote about 100%. The questionnaire would get the town, if, my opinion, sounded like yours too, with context, the benefit of what we've experienced, get the town to be more informed and to give us a more granular feedback than, do you like apple pie with ice cream? I agree totally.
So, I wasn't at the town meeting. What does it, well, I guess I'm curious about why you think the mandate is to facilitate the development of solar and going 100% green. Is there more of a definition on that? Is it just to make sure all the town buildings are
No,
using green?
it was just a general phrase put in front of the town.
I like the term aspirational.
Exactly, it was aspirational.
I mean, that can be anything from
Of course.
recycling to.
That's why we need,
Yeah.
we need better
Yeah, I think
feedback.
a lot of towns.
which is why I think we should zero in on solar
What?
arrays.
Why,
And what is
why
their-
solar?
Because that was what was addressed.
Well,
Was to
No.
become green by using solar?
No.
No.
Well, it was, how else are we gonna become green?
Can
It
beat up
was-
Mark way in?
Please.
Yeah, it was
That's,
100%.
that's our only purview. Right now, there's not a wind energy or.
For the planning board
tidal
though, I
energy.
mean, to be green, you can do conservation, efficiency, insulation,
Yeah,
reduce consumption.
but that's not on our, that's
But
not
I know that's not you, but so,
Mark probably.
Mark, go ahead before somebody else talks.
Yeah, the goal was to achieve 100% renewable electricity consumption by 2030.
Yeah,
And so, you know, you can employ efficiency to reduce the amount of electricity that we need to consume. You know, you can recycle if you want to, well, I'm not quite sure what that would do for electricity, but it was not limited to solar. It could be wind, it could be anything. So it was very broad, but it was focused specifically on electricity.
yeah, so for our part, we can't have a weatherization program. You know, the planning board isn't
Okay,
gonna
I get it,
have
I get it,
weatherization the only thing on a practical level, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I often am, on a practical level, right now, the only impact we can have is through solar. I mean, substantial impact. Am I wrong?
So you're saying that you need to change the zoning laws to facilitate 8,700 megawatts of solar?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
So-
that solar is the only,
Leverage point.
okay, however you want to, leverage point, and not, the planning board isn't saying what, we can give our opinion, but ultimately, we need feedback from the town to know what the town thinks. My concern with questionnaires has always been context. If I know from when I was a civilian, and much happier days prior to the planning board, that when issues like this, I wanted to know what the planning board thought, because
Yeah, I agree.
that's what we get paid for. I'm stealing that from you, Rich. But that's what we get paid the big bucks for. I wanted to know what the planning board thought. I could disagree with them, but I think we should say what we think, why we think that, what we don't, what we're ignorant of, and let people give us the feedback. And your scenarios of feedback, those three, 2 or 3 scenarios are very likely, one or the other.
It would be good if we could get the electric committee, the energy committee to help us with the context though. 'Cause
I mean, yeah, I think they already have a lot, but it's our responsibility now. And we can run it past them, but we need to stop kicking this down the road. So if David can get us the thing next time, let's put a hard deadline of June. By the end of June, we're gonna have a questionnaire to go out, and maybe even with a suggested, what we would have as an amendment attached to it, so that people have all the information they can possibly have.
I guess I have a question or a concern, and that is there a definition of what is small-scale solar versus what is commercial? Because I have concerns of opening up a lot of the town to what I would consider commercial development through the installation of solar panels. And I don't think we want, I don't think we would be happy at the end of the day if that was to happen.
I share that concern, and that's why I think the planning board, as a board, to the degree that we can have a consensus, should say, for instance, either, as both of you, both Riches said at one point, and maybe in different contexts, was, do we really need, let's just keep the small stuff. But to get the feedback, we need to say what we're in favor of. So you could say, if you were writing this thing to the town, you could say, I prefer a limited area, and this particular limited area without allowing free rein to commercial development. And the reason I think this is A, B, C, and D. That way, we can express what our concerns are, and people can agree or disagree with us.
So I guess I'd ask you 2 questions. Rich, you said you're concerned about commercial solar everywhere. Can I ask you to be clear about those concerns, just so I understand them?
Well, one of the things about zoning is that it offers people protections, and it also offers people rules of the road, and
Okay.
I would hate to see something that, because it's like it's perceived to be like apple pie and ice cream,
Mhm.
that we should have it everywhere, but I'm not sure that, I think it should be there
Okay.
everywhere.
Well, you're on the board,
And so-
and you should have a voice.
Yeah,
Right.
Well, cause we're talking about size, I think we were saying that anything beyond what's used on somebody's property becomes commercial, right? That's
No,
what
we
were saying?
never said that. We never defined, commercial. And as of now, the only, and David
But if you
Robbins, correct me if I'm wrong, but the only potential commercial application of solar under current zoning, it would be within, no, it wouldn't be, because it's not listed as a
Where it's
use.
not listed as a use,
So,
so we're.
so there is no commercial,
Yeah.
currently there is no commercial use, so it's undefined, and we haven't defined
But
it.
I thought we were saying that if you're generating more than what you're using on your property and you're selling it, then that becomes commercial. I thought
No,
I thought
we-
we said that.
no.
That's what net metering is,
No, but commercial,
essentially.
in terms of our zoning ordinance, commercial is a specific thing.
And I would still
And as an
consider it an
accessory
accessory
use.
if you're, you can have a home office in your house to run your own business. I would consider solar on your roof that provides a little extra energy that you use would be no different than a home occupation. It's not,
Well, right, you're getting credit for that. Yeah.
but it's not, it's still right there on your lot, it's limited in size, it's not,
Right.
you're not going out and leasing land to a developer.
It may be an issue we have to clarify, because the home office is connected to a commercial use. But that's something we can clarify, but it's not allowed right now, and we haven't defined it. The fact that you're ostensibly making a profit, it sounds like a commercial use, but, I'm not sure.
I mean,
Maybe
I
you.
mean, Rich's concerns are,
It's-
the infrastructure's gonna keep what he's concerned about from happening.
Yeah, except that the thing that one of the things I came away with is things are changing so fast that what we think are limitations now may not be.
Yeah, I think electrical wires are a pretty strong physical principle.
The thing I think about when I see a limitation like that set by the power company is you have a for-profit organization that sees a way for somebody else to pay for the upgrades of their
Right.
Right.
systems.
So
And
that could come from the government, the federal government, through the IRA or other things. I think it's bad policy to do zoning assuming that limitations like that are written in stone.
But there's certainly a limitation for the next 5 years.
That's possible,
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I also have a little bit of enough of a New Hampshire, that it's like, why are you telling me what I can't do with my land? But it's pretty passive and not hurting anybody, I got,
But that's your opinion.
I know,
And
I'm
you
saying-
should also weigh in with your opinion.
John, that actually came to mind. I mean, if we did say, this is the planning board consensus, I think it would be important for the town to hear dissenting
Oh, absolutely.
voices.
Absolutely.
Just to say,
Yep, 100%.
but they're not
We
considering.
could even say that,
Even
X,
pros and
X,
cons.
X number of the board came together on this,
Just
and
like the
X,
Supreme Court. There's the
yeah.
decision that
Let's
they say-
not base our,
oh, yeah,
let's
no.
let's not go there.
Okay.
We don't, let's
Alright.
use them as a way not to be. Yeah, I agree, yes.
Hebe, your comment about the zoning ordinance, with respect to electric lines and so forth, that applies to all elements of the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance does restrict land use to protect the town, as Rich has said. And the other thing that it's important to remember is that if the zoning ordinance allows it, even if it's not feasible now, it will one day become feasible, and it will happen.
It will happen.
If it's allowed, it will happen.
I agree with that. All right, so, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in summary,
You're wrong.
I'm wrong, all right, I'll stop there. Thank you, it saves me a lot of time. So are we somewhat agreed to, David is gonna, get us this stuff next meeting,
June 8th.
2 meetings from now?
No,
No?
we don't have a meeting next week.
Next time.
What did I say, next week?
No, you said next meeting.
You said.
I said next meeting is June 8th.
I make enough mistakes
Oh, June 8th,
without
right.
having them added to. A next meeting, you'll have that.
Yep.
Then we will forge ahead with what we discussed tonight, and no more, what,
Some sort of question.
questionnaire, context, the whole deal, everybody's gotta, state their feelings, and we can sum it up. If at the end, people wanna say this is terrible, we can, whatever, but let's move
I just do want
ahead.
people to think about keeping it as short as they can, because some of this stuff is just way longer than anybody's.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I think at this stage, it's good to put everything down you want, and we'll have to edit it. The next part I'd like to get at is, let's start getting to work on the housing chapter and, other thoughts relating to housing. So, put on your housing hats.
Before we
Yeah.
change that, I'm not sure what I'm gonna gain by knowing that rather than, Mark had 40 sites on his map. And if David comes up with 20 sites, or 3, or 55, I'm not sure what that's going to do for me.
It's just more information, it may not,
More context.
You can write,
yeah.
you can write the code to make sure that it conforms to those sites.
Yeah.
And I
well,
think-
you could, but I mean, I think your point is, it's probably not gonna change your mind, which is fine, it's just more information.
Right, and I think David said you were gonna do where 5 acres could go and where 25 acres could go.
Yep.
Which is a big difference, and that would help, I think, to know.
And it's, you know, 3-phase power and 4 miles from the substation.
Yeah, there are a
And
lot of
within
them,
1,000 feet of 3 phase.
3,000
Unless
feet.
you wanna-
Yeah, I mean, I had originally said, you know,
right, the poles.
200 yards, but
Yeah.
All right, so, just hang on, are we agreed at least generally?
And so I'd like to go, no, I'd like to go the next step.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna have this information, we'll all have dutifully studied it. I will have studied it before the meeting. What do we do then? So our goal is to have, not this next time, not on June 8th, but the following meeting, final wording on a questionnaire to send out to the town
With context,
with.
and, well, I mean, we can discuss this at the next meeting, but I think, you know, the context and possibly even a general, amendment that, you know, people can dig into or say, oh, that's great, that's terrible, we like this, we don't like that.
Yeah.
It seems to me that, you know, the real question you're asking the town is, do you wanna see a larger open area covered in a solar panels? That's when you get right down to, you know, what the question,
That's the key, the key question.
the key question, that it's not, doesn't matter where that's energy is going, you know, and that's.
To some people it does.
Well, it does,
It does.
but
that's harder to control.
that's harder to control. And I'm not sure, again, as far as what the planning board can put in an ordinance to say, well, if it's going, the recs are being used in Lyme or bought in Lyme, then
Oh, I
you
don't
can
think
have
that-
it, or,
That's not relevant.
well, no, it should be, you know, it seems to me that it just boils down to the question of how big a system are the residents of the town willing to look at?
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
and
there's
except
a
what-
state limit, right?
1
Still?
megawatt.
For the
Right,
time
right.
being,
So-
but New Hampshire is an outlier, 5 megawatts is usual. And New Hampshire's been dragging its feet. And it's very possible that that's gonna change.
Well, then we can take it up again, you know, I think that for now, that's all we have to worry, that's all we have to,
1 megawatt.
that's a limit, that's a hard stop.
Yeah, 5 acres.
I mean,
Well, I mean, in terms of how we phrase the questionnaire, we can say that. But getting back to what you were saying, David, the recs are not relevant in terms of the wording, but they're relevant in the context, so that people can understand, you know, where the energy goes, how people figure out
Cause I bet,
what supports the arrays and stuff.
I bet.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I bet that a huge number of people in town think that if we had solar arrays in Lyme, all that energy would be
I
going
think
right
a
to
lot of
Lyme.
people do think that.
They just think, oh, this is great, we're gonna have our own power in Lyme and our own, yeah, that's what they think. And, you know, no criticism, but they just don't understand.
Okay.
Well, I was gonna say something else, but I'll just respond to Tim. I mean, if we had a solar array in Lyme, I can pretty much guarantee you that, the Lyme folks would be offered the power from that, because the way that that system would be built would be under what's known as group net metering. And, you know, they need to find people to subscribe to the system, and so my guess is they would open it up to folks in Lyme, or businesses in Lyme, or the Lyme municipalities.
Are you talking about
Everson?
an aggregate system, or just, because Kearsarge was not that interested in supplying Lyme?
But they said, no,
No.
well, the meeting I was at least,
Yeah.
they said they were open to.
They were open to it,
Yeah.
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 I took that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
They were interested in getting the tax credits
But, I mean, it's
for
also
the,
what CPCNH wants to do, is
Yeah,
start
exactly.
building their own solar sources.
what, I missed the first part.
CPCNH is interested in starting to develop solar as well, their own
Right.
sources.
Okay. But anyway, I don't assume that that's the case.
Yeah,
It
so,
it might be the case.
so what I was gonna say actually is, I think David, you know, proposed some wording just off the top of your head about, you know, when you go out to the town, you would say, would you like to see a system of this size? There are gonna be some sites where you just wouldn't see the system, right? I mean, the Bailey site was
Right.
largely out of view of most folks, maybe everybody for the most part, unless you're really looking for it. So I'm not sure, like wording it like, you know,
Yeah, we're not,
Yeah.
this is not, believe me,
Okay.
we
Got it.
have not begun to fight. C doesn't cover all the concerns. Some people don't wanna have them, some people don't wanna have them on certain types of land. So how we phrase it is
Yeah,
a challenge.
right.
But you said you switched to what, Tim, you had another,
Well, I was just gonna, you know, what I
Oh,
just.
okay.
Yeah.
and.
Yeah,
you-
I was,
you
I
went-
was gonna say, you know, with whether the megawatts go to Lyme or not, I mean, the electrons are fungible, they just go into the grid. And you
Right.
might claim you have a credit for green energy, but what actually, where that electron came from might have been any kind of power source. So you're just
Yeah, but
signing it.
the recs are associated with that original power
Well, they
source.
they can be associated with a solar plant project anywhere.
Right,
Right, so you're not getting solar from that project.
yeah, I mean, and this is something, you know, we discovered, but it's, I mean, we can spend a
Right,
whole
no,
other evening on it.
I'm just saying, I just, saying.
A philosophical conversation.
it's not really
on the recs.
philosophical, but,
Yeah, I agree.
on the point of putting it in context, I think it would be important to explain to people how the regulatory system works for solar in New Hampshire. For example, above a certain level, right, doesn't the town has no say and the state takes over, like with the 400-acre project in Hinsdale. The town zoning power is, as I understand it, either they don't have zoning or, so, does anyone, that would be important to understand.
The state limit in the moment for individual projects is 1 megawatt.
No, well, 5 megawatts if it's a municipal.
If it's a municipal and the town.
But
if
there's a
the town-
400-acre project going in
That-
Hinsdale.
The state limit that you're talking about, Hebe, is just for group net metering.
Right,
Okay, so, but you could build a, you know, like, you could build a 400-acre project. There's no size limit per se, it's just what is possible for group net metering.
Okay, so that's new news,
wait,
that's new
no,
news for me.
really?
Yeah, sure, I mean, you could put in a 50-megawatt project if you
Right,
want.
that's
So
50
if,
acres.
in Lyme, if Lyme enabled it in the zoning, they could put a 400 acre, somebody could build a 400 acre.
The 400-acre project in Hinsdale has a power contract with power suppliers in Massachusetts. So it's not even going to
Yeah.
New Hampshire
So
residents.
this
There
is-
is 700
This is what I
acre
keep
ones going in.
discovering, you know, it's maddening for me, because I keep thinking I understand something. Like, you know, and like you, we've got the 1 megawatt and then we got the 5 megawatts. Well, now,
Well, and
I'm-
if the town does it itself, they can.
yeah, but now I'm learning that there is no limit.
Except for
Right,
what the
there's no
grid-
limit.
It's-
On the
it's-
size.
Yeah, it's just a question of how many pieces of land you can piece together, you can do,
Right.
you can build whatever you want. I mean,
And what they did with the Hinsdale project is it's spread over, I don't know how many square miles, but it's, you know, they went around all the wetlands and they just like.
Well, wetlands don't matter as of yesterday, so.
Oh, this is true, that's right. But, you know, it wasn't like they just had a big square 400-acre parcel. It's scattered throughout all the conservation lands, on private land and public land and. So it's, I'm just saying,
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad you brought it up, because, once again, when I think I know something, I don't.
Mark, does the state preempt local control?
So, I don't really know the answer to that. I know they have some sort of siting committee, or at least they did. I thought I saw something recently where they're trying to switch that over to the New Hampshire DOE, but I'm not really up on that.
Let me suggest that, this is going back to what Rich was saying before, Rich Mangy. I think Dave does great work, his GIS work is superb, but I think the board should really focus on what we want for the town. You all know what the town wants. I mean, let me just flesh it out. Commercial and net metered use would be allowed in the commercial and the rural zone outside of the conservation districts, as long as it's screened from view. And it would also be subject to the Article 5 dimensional controls and site plan review. If you can't put it in the overlay districts, and it has to be screened from view, I think a lot of people in town would be all for it, or at least would agree with it. If I can't see it, it doesn't bother me. Vicki Smith made the point at the last meeting that we can't see the solar arrays at Crossroads. They don't bother us, we don't see them. Well, if we don't see a 1 megawatt or a 5 megawatt project, it won't bother us.
And
So-
so was your suggestion was in the rural and commercial district?
Rural and commercial.
Probably,
Not-
probably
not-
the skiway
Yeah, and, what about the skiway?
and the skiway.
Well, if they can screen it, fine.
Yeah, good luck
Screening
with
is
that.
key.
But, what does the board think about David's proposal?
I liked it when I read it.
I thought it was pretty good too.
Can I just ask what the size limit would be in that case? Is that the 26,000?
Well, I think what you're saying is it would be naturally restricted
Right,
by whatever area, coverage area was allowed.
that's right.
Yeah.
So it'd be up to 26,000
No,
square
there-
feet per,
There'd be no limit.
No, because if you, that would be, that is per lot.
that's the maximum allowed
Oh.
for a single lot, that's
Sorry.
the maximum footprint allowed.
You could, right.
So if you piece together 2 lots, then it would be 52,000 square feet?
Yes,
Okay.
or if you had a large lot and you subdivided it.
Although, but that doesn't,
That's treating it as a structure then.
that's solely treating it as a structure, and forgive me if I'm wrong, David, I was thinking that, if we really did have 5 acres that were conducive, and it could be screened, and it was not gonna be any of these other concerns, that would make sense to you, and that might well make sense to people in town.
Right.
So that we're specifically treating solar as different from
Structure.
a structure in this case, that it's like, this is a perfectly acceptable use.
The other issue would be
Wait, can we just
the
get that?
poles.
Did you get that clarified? I mean,
That's,
is that?
I think
do
it's
you
like
He
a
agree?
nod.
He nodded.
Well,
Yeah, as I wrote it up, I did say the dimensional controls of Article 5 would apply, which takes us to the 26,000 feet.
I see.
So, but the logic of my position is as long as you can't see it,
Mhm.
and it's not in any of the overlay districts, it's okay.
so.
What about
So-
transmission lines and things like that, that have to be upgraded or?
Yeah. I also said that it would be subject to site plan review, and so the planning board would look at those questions.
Yeah, but I mean, can you imagine where, you know, we rejected it because we didn't like the, you know,
Well, it'd be up to the neighbors.
I can,
no, I don't think that.
But would you be
That's a tough
amenable
one.
to relaxing the dimensional restriction of the 26,000 if it was out of sight?
sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that first of all, I like the brevity of your suggestion. And with those two things, you get, you know, you have a natural limit, but you're allowing it.
Yeah.
And is the 26,000, is that based on the drip edge of the panels?
I don't think we would have the 26,000.
No, we wouldn't have, the drip edge would go away. That would be actual area,
Actual area including the space in between rows?
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, the
So-
other
In
option,
that case, it's different from a building, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we were,
It's more restrictive.
my memory is we were trying to shoehorn a solar array to be treated no differently from a building. If you could build a barn that big, you could build a solar array that big. And then what happened was we got to this bigger and bigger, and we said, well, no more than 26,000 square feet, because that's the maximum allowed. But that's kind of an odd size, it's neither here nor there.
but to your concern, I think, which is, oh, you know, that could be very inhibiting. I mean, one option, really what you're saying is all that we're concerned about isn't so much the size, it's can you see it?
Yeah, it's the visual.
So if we wanted to, we could accommodate something larger than 26,000 feet,
Right.
but it would have to be not visible.
Right.
Well, visible by who? I mean, there's always a butter.
Well, that'd be an issue.
Well, we'd have to work that out, but the point is that the people who don't like solar arrays don't like them because they're ugly. They're industrial applications, and it's
Yeah.
inconsistent with what we love about the town of Lyme. Well, if we can't see it, then it's okay. Well. and then-
That's how we got that nuclear plant in town.
Exactly.
Nobody, you can't see it.
I'll just offer another perspective. So, you know, I've seen presentations by a leading hydrology expert who says you shouldn't be cutting down forests for solar. So, you know, I know we have a lot of forests here, and you probably don't think, you probably think we have plenty to spare, but
You're talking to the wrong person. No, I mean,
I'm just saying-
I've been shouting from the treetops about that from the beginning.
all right, so in addition to visual impacts, you know, there are bills flying around all over the place, at least in New England, about cutting down trees for solar, how it shouldn't be done, that the state shouldn't be giving subsidies for that the energy companies shouldn't be doing it. I know Massachusetts is doing a study on, kind of like what you're talking about, is where can we site solar without clearing forests and impacting wetlands, and there's been thousands of solar projects in Massachusetts built in wetlands or near wetlands. So it's, in addition to the visual impacts, I think there are others to consider.
Well,
And
we do have, I mean, with the trees, you're preaching to the choir
Oh, just-
with me. But we do have the districts, the conservation districts, which give us, you know, a lot of protection. The problem with the trees is we can't regulate tree cutting. We can't, and that's my concern. Yeah, I could live with cutting down some trees, I don't like it, but what I don't wanna do is incentivize cutting down trees.
Even Vicky had to cut down trees for her
Oh,
solar.
Vicky loves cutting down trees.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, in addition to aesthetics,
Yes.
is there another, you know, other
Yes, there are.
concerns?
There
Yeah.
are. But there is an elegance to David's draft, and it might be something that we can work with. I like, simplicity is a wonderful thing, and I like the simplicity of it.
I can offer another simple notion on this
Okay.
point, but I've seen the bylaw where solar is limited to, in this case, 5 acres, and the land cannot have been cleared within the last 5 years. So
Yeah,
that
there are
means
those
you
things, yeah.
can't cut down trees to put in solar.
It's just,
I'm just.
yeah, no, we had a 10-year, we have a 10-year clawback thing, the parent lot. I forget the wording, but we have something akin to that, yeah.
No, two things. Mark has informed us on the trade-offs between carbon storage and carbon sequestration in forests and the benefits of the solar arrays that would replace the forest. And it was compelling, I thought. Sure, we don't want to cut down trees, but the fact that we've cut them down and have lost those carbon benefits is more than outweighed by the benefit of the solar arrays. Furthermore, and importantly, the best way to screen a solar array is in a forest, or is in the center of what was a forest.
Yeah, except that it's a very linear, I mean, I appreciated what he laid out, and it was very convincing, but it's very linear, and it doesn't take into account fragmentation and ecosystem. What Lyme, and this is something I think Stephen Doig pointed out, was what Lyme has that is exceptional is what the world is after right now, which is a relatively, and I underline relatively, highly functioning ecosystem. So, yes, of course we can sacrifice some of that for a benefit, but I'd like, personally speaking, the balance is important.
Your point's well taken, and
But that's the first part of
Comma,
the
but.
kick in the teeth, but go
well,
ahead.
no, not a kick in the teeth. No, you're absolutely right. That has to be taken into account, and it will be, or can be taken into account in the site plan review regulations. You have to,
Yeah.
in addition to providing this, the
Potential.
forestry screen, you have to provide corridors, wildlife corridors. And you can't eliminate the wildlife
I would
corridors.
also like to just point out that what we have is second growth, mixed deciduous forests that where fire has been suppressed for a long time, so it's not really in any way a culminating ecosystem.
Actually, we may have a little bit of a
I mean,
disagreement.
but
though.
I'm just
We
talking about
have
the
some
definition.
extraordinary forests,
We-
if in certain areas that I've seen, and we have areas of over 100-year growth, which begins to take on characteristics of old growth forests.
Well, except it means all the pine trees are the same age and they're
The
falling
pines-
over.
Yeah, some of the pine trees.
But we also used to, a really peak ecosystem has openings and edge and grassland and fires and that kind of thing, and you wind up, we're losing certain species because we don't have those openings anymore.
We have plenty of openings. Anyway, we don't need to get into
But I'm just saying,
we don't need to get into the weeds about it.
reverence for our ecosystem is, just could be modulated.
I think ultimately, I think you and I would agree, you know, when we got to that, and maybe, you know, for different reasons, but I don't think we'd be that far apart in terms of result. All right, yes,
Let's have a good, are you gonna send this out to everybody before the meeting?
I'll try to, yes.
Okay,
As soon as I can get it done, I will send it out.
All right, so, first of all, I thought this was really helpful, and especially thanks to the public, all three of them. I mean it, no, I mean it, it's really, really helpful. So, let's just go over what we're doing. David's gonna get us that stuff. We're looking at expediting this. By the end of June, the second meeting, we hope to have, you know, I don't wanna give any wiggle room, but let's just say we're aiming for the end of June to have something that we can either agree, okay, we wanna send it out, or scrap the whole thing. But let's get there and have something we can look at and make decisions from that. In the meantime, start putting on your housing hats, and we can take it from there.
Do we wanna ask Mark or the Energy Committee to help write the context piece?
I think we should, I think we should write it. We can
And then have
run
them
it
vet it.
past them,
Have them vet it?
but it's our,
Yeah, I just think that we have sort of a patchy understanding. It's less than comprehensive.
yeah, I'm sure we do, but it's what we have, and then we can run it past them and have them make corrections where we're clearly wrong. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, I mean, how are we gonna get there though, in terms of the narrative? Cause I think I wasn't sure what we were trying to submit, and then you three
Yeah, I
three
didn't think there were
people.
all this view, I didn't understand that it was supposed to be my personal
Yeah,
views.
that, well,
Well, I
that's,
didn't-
So I thought it was
really
supposed to
wanna
be a
put my-
questionnaire with a little bit of context.
No.
Yeah, and I thought what was provided by all three of you had good points in it, and then I did something that looks like Rich Brown kind of
I cribbed off you,
piggybacked.
actually.
Yeah.
Piggybacked
so
off
that's
what I
good,
had.
that's the first round.
Is that what we're
No,
trying to
at
come
this,
up
at this,
with?
well, what I'm saying, we can do whatever we want. What I'm suggesting, which you can reject, is that we really say what we think. I think that's our role in something that's so difficult, not only for us, but for the public to understand. We should tell them what we think and why, and,
I liked your structure of pros and cons.
Yeah.
I thought that was,
well, we would
that
have
could be a helpful.
the consensus, you know, say there's X number that think we should do this and X number that don't. And,
I mean, even if you're in favor of it, you can have understanding of concerns, so.
yeah,
so that
I
you could
agree
be on
with the
both-
general consensus here, however,
Exactly.
yeah, we can all put those in. Is my thinking.
I think if you do list, you know, the general information, you know, context, and then, you can put down, pros, cons, and concerns.
Yeah.
And, you know, just say, here's some of the things that the planning board has thought about that the members have concerns, and it can be from
Yeah.
either side.
I agree. So does that help, Rich? No.
Would it be helpful, I mean, I think I can do it honestly, if I could take all of the pieces and find the common points and group it, make one document where the different arguments from each of you come together and can be talked about.
I think that'd be fine, but none of us are bound by that.
Oh, gosh, no, it's
Yeah,
just a,
If-
I mean, it's impossible to edit 6 documents at
Yeah,
once.
right.
And we don't have, you know, like,
Yeah,
but if we had something to
Sure,
work from
that would be
and
good,
to write on,
if you're willing to do that.
and then everybody's questions. And I might recast them a little bit so that they do look more like a questionnaire.
I can only see benefit from that, I don't see
Okay.
any negative, none of us would be bound by it, but it might help expedite
Well, of
things.
course you're bound.
Yes, we're bound by
I'm
it.
Evie's gonna be
controlling-
twisting our
I'm
arms
gonna
like.
control the
Yeah,
information.
yeah, stop it, Evie, will you?
Control
Just
the
stop it.
information.
All right, need we do any more? But feel free to, if you,
Are you moving that we need not?
I didn't wanna be so bold.
So can I move, we adjourn?
You can do that.
So,
We have,
John, just
okay,
to be
no,
clear.
we cannot.
No,
Well,
That's
no,
true.
there's no
It's-
second,
it's-
okay, keep
Just to
going.
be really clear in my brain, we're gonna get something from David, we're gonna get the possible sightings, whatever. And then we're gonna write up questions that we think
No,
should
no,
be,
no, no. Okay, let's-
before the next meeting?
Okay, let's try this
After
again.
we see
Let's
that-
try this again, okay? The thought is, and you don't have to do it if you don't, you know, if people don't wanna do this, we don't have to. But the thought is that we provide a context for what we're suggesting. Let's just say, we
I've
won't.
already written that stuff,
Yeah, but no, even with yours, it was kind of open-ended, you kind of pointed. If you want, let's use David's thing. Let's just say, you agree with David's thing, so that you say, this is what I want to happen in Lyme. The reason I want this to happen in Lyme is for the following reasons. I think it'll be, you know, I don't wanna go.
Okay,
You
all right, yeah.
And
all
then
right.
you can even put, I am a little bit hesitant because of A, B, and C, but I think this is a good plan.
Okay, so we're all gonna do that for next meeting.
Yes.
Oh, I thought I was gonna put together all of these documents.
Well, that was, you volunteered to
I
do
did,
that,
I
but,
did.
Right.
but we're all,
Are you still doing more?
yeah.
Yeah, okay, good.
Well, and now you can back out if you want.
Well, I think that we need to create the conditions to be able to work productively at the next meeting. And so, to have all of the concerns, the pros and the cons in one document.
Yeah, except
Right, so we're gonna write up all new stuff.
but
for
that
Doing
may,
more?
what, you know, whatever people wanna do.
Okay. Okay.
I'm struggling to think about what else I'm gonna,
You don't have to
No,
add anything.
exactly. That's what I was just gonna
Yeah.
put your pieces together, because we all hit on.
So let me,
similar-
okay, and let me ask you the question. What do you think should happen in Lyme with solar? You know, say I'm a member of the public, I find out through the word of mouth, you are on the planning board, and I come to you and I say, Rich, what's your plan, you know, what do you think should happen in Lyme with solar?
I mean, I think that the ordinance that we had before is pretty good as long as, if the town feels that they would be willing to look at 3 acres of solar.
Okay, so then
In
what
those
you would do
places.
is you would say, here's the ordinance that I think is pretty good. I support it for the following reasons. My reservations are such and such, and that's that. I can
See,
tell.
the problem, well, I know what you're, because we really haven't defined commercial, and so I know you're worried about people having really large.
But that, he can
arrays,
say
but-
that.
Yeah,
And it's addressed, he's saying that really large is not allowed, because he's saying the ordinance that we did last year is what he's supporting.
By and large, yeah.
which doesn't
as long
include
as-
solar arrays at all. right?
Well, 2.5 to 3 acres
Well,
is,
true,
20,000 square feet.
yeah.
no, well, that's not my understanding, we don't need to get.
But, but I mean, I think I am concerned about the visibility of it.
So then say, you know, we have the site plan review stuff, or you can just say, as in the ordinance itself, say what you think.
Yeah.
That, I mean, I guess one of the things I'm having trouble with is we need to say what we think. Why aren't we saying what we think? Yeah,
What you think is that it has to be screened.
yeah,
What
thank
you
you.
what you think is that it can't be on the conservation overlay
Right,
areas.
so I mean,
And then and now the Rich Mengy addition to those two fundamental provisions, that it can't be larger than X square feet regardless, whatever that number is.
So, say, I guess I'm just not expressing it well, but just say what you want to happen in Lyme. Don't, let's stop with we want people to know what we think. We don't want to be secretive about it. So just come out with what you want, have the question, and the supporting reasons and what, your reservations, and then the questions, bing, bang, boom, and then we'll hash it out.
And procedurally, we mail them all to David?
And I won't bother.
And you
This
don't,
time.
I think it's
Yeah.
very nice of you
Well,
to,
I meant, if it was the end, it would make sense to do it,
Right,
but now
exactly,
we're
exactly.
still in
Because you're
transition.
kind of.
yeah, so maybe the next time,
Yes, next time I will.
that'd be good.
I will.
Thank you.
okay.
Mr. Roby, I think I see your hand up, which is a shock to me.
Well, in setting the table, the three fundamental points. One is that the town would like to be 100% green electricity. The second point is that it appears that through the collaboration, we can get it wholesale. We can get wholesale green energy from off-site. People should know that.
That's something that could be provided in the context.
Yeah, and the third element is, if we wanna have solar in town, these are the parameters. And each of you should decide what the parameters
I
are.
agree.
Okay. So,
Brilliantly done, really. All right, so weren't you saying something?
Now, perhaps we could move towards you.
Is there a second? Tim enthusiastically saying, thank you very much for coming. I can't, seriously, it's a real help. Thank you, Mark.
Just take you off the glass.
Absolutely.
can I make an announcement about something unrelated?
Yes.
Yes,
If you wanna see a really good series, if you get Max, The Night Of is a fan.
The Night Of?
It's called The Night Of, it's on Max.
what is it about?
It almost
Is
goes
it a
back,
K at night or an N?
no, NIGHT.
Okay.
It's almost